Owner of the El Retorno Kennel, he has bred medium schnauzers, wire-haired and smooth-haired fox terriers, whippets, beagles, boxers, smooth-haired dachshunds, greyhounds, and Cimarron Uruguayo. Member of the FCI Standards Commission from 1999 to 2022, he is currently the president. He's also the president of the Uruguayan Kennel Club has been the president of the Uruguayan Kennel Club for several periods, and also the president of the Cimarrones Uruguayos Breeders Society.
Good morning. Thank you very much for attending this event. For me, it is an honor to be here today. I am very thankful for the invitation of the Mexican Canine Federation and the Commission of Animal Health and Welfare of the FCI. I want to thank them for inviting me to talk about standards. I want to take the opportunity of being here to point out the work of Dr. José Luis Pairo. The Commission of Welfare and Health was a creation of his own, and I witnessed all the hard work he put behind. So I wish him all the best. I know that this is a dream come true for him, and the level of organization that he has added, as well as the people who work in the federation, is amazing. I will talk about standards once again upon request of the organizers, but now highlighting the subject of the Congress, which is animal welfare and health. The meaning of standard is something considered by an authority or general consensus as a comparison base and an approved model. It is an object seen as a usual shape or size in its class, a rule or principle used as base to choose something, to judge something, or a requirement, quality, quantity, level, grade, medium, or normal. As we see, all definitions are perfectly adapted to the definition of the standard. The evolution of standards is ongoing. Standards are not set in stone. They are always in continuous evolution, and they will continue to be so. The standards could vary because of many different reasons. The adaptation or necessary changes due to health reasons, or to tend better to the strengths or specific needs of a specific breed, to preserve certain characteristics due to government laws, or evolution of the race. Not long ago, we had the change of the Siberian Husky, which is an American breed, and thanks to Sinestanza, who is here with us. Of course, the owners of the standard is the U.S., the Siberian Husky Club. And upon the request, looking at the need of the breed because of the loss of some proportions, such as the length of the feet compared to the rest of the body, we were asked to put it at important points because we had this item in the standard model of FCI. And besides this one, they sent us a drawing to put here, so it was a great collaboration. The definition of breed is a set of individuals with common characters, distinguishing them from other representatives of the same species and that are genetically transmissible. The beginning of the standards. There are breeds with thousands of years in existence, and there are some forms, different forms to communicate the standards. Here we have an example of allegedly one of the first ever written descriptions of a breed in a very, very basic way, and the description of the greyhound in a book of 1486. So it adapts perfectly to the essence of the breed. It says the head of a serpent, the head of a dog, and a rat-like tail. Essentially, this is what a greyhound is and what determines its breed. The history of the modern standard is conceived in the UK around the 19th century, in which breeders are gathered and they start drafting the different standards of breeds. In reality, there are four main groups that issue standards of canine breeds: Kennel Club, AKC, CKC, and the FCI. The FCI was founded in 1910, and it is the largest world organization on the subject. It is made up of 5 countries, 370 breeds acknowledged, 9,500 judges, and over 5,000 shows a year. All the members of FCI use the same standards, and they are published in 4 official languages: English, Spanish, French, and German. So as you can see, it is very hard work for the FCI to keep the standards updated for 370 races in breeds in 4 different languages. In the FCI, we try as best as we can to respect the breed standard of the origin country, whether they are members of our organization or not. And there is something about reciprocity and respect. When we have standards from other organizations, then we add the generalities of FCI. And other generalities, especially for atypical dogs and their behavior, their temperament. It would be great if we had universal standards and we could have the same standards all around the world, but our policy is to try and respect the awareness of standards, even if they are not from the organization. Yeah, there are some that it is impossible to go back because they accept now different sizes and colors. But it would be good to try and homogenize as best as we can all the standards in the world for the benefit of everyone. The importance of standards. For the reference or those for judges, and a reference for breeders who intend to have superior quality specimens, and also the reference to for show handlers. The FCI, the breed standard, is a detailed description of the ideal for each breed. The origin country is the one determining each standard. At the FCI, we have a model standard that in which we try to keep the number of lines, faults that are merit disqualification, serious faults, and all sorts of standards. We try to standardize them, at least those that belong to FCI, to follow the same order. Some disqualifying faults are general standards for the FCI, and we also add them to the standards of other organizations such as aggressiveness or extreme shyness, mental or physical abnormalities, and these are general for all the standards. To have, in the case of males, normal testicles hanging in the scrotum, and to procreate only with healthy and typical specimens. Interpretation of standards. Standards, like many times we hear, do not offer us precisely an objective pace. A judge, when judging, gives us their personal interpretation based on the standard and based on their understanding of what's typical and what is not in each breed. The breeders, judges, handlers, and lovers of the breeds can interpret the standard responsibly, always bearing in mind, in the first place, the well-being of the specimen. No lover of dogs, whether they are judges, handlers, or owners, will promote exaggerations that will be detrimental for the health of the specimen. The good intention of the interpretation is fundamental. There could be different interpretations, but it is fundamental for them to be well intended. The unscrupulous people will misuse any draft of a standard. Very often they ask why not change something, and we try to do the best we can. But people who want to give it a poor interpretation or are unscrupulous will always be promoting their personal type and their personal interpretation, their trend interpretation of the standard they prefer. They care very little about damaging the breed at a middle and a short or long term, because that damages the current standards. We choose the interpretation of standards. We choose the specimens that have the phenotype we hope produces a healthy and typical genotype. We are always to avoid exaggeration, and remaining faithful to any breed means respecting the standard. The breeders that have been around for longer and judges have the duty to make it clear that exaggerations are not typical nor traditional, and they affect the quality and the life quality of the animals and the upcoming generations. The general public that are not so expert, if they see deviations at the breed, they take it as good or true, and it could be very dangerous, because most likely they are the future breeders and the ones who will continue. Talking about standards, every time we play with puppies, we need to have the perspective that standards are written based on adult dogs. We always have to bear it in mind when we are playing with the puppies. Important points. The general aspects are important points, and the first thing we see when the dog enters the ring: the appearance, type, size, conformation, and specific characteristics of each breed. The morphology, that is to say, structure, balance, and ratio. Temperament, the character, the energy and movement, and the typical movement of the breed. We need to see how the dog moves. We need to take into consideration what their technical function is, and because not all breeds are supposed to move the same. And aesthetically, physical condition, general condition is what we can determine in plain sight, such as weight and condition of the hair, in which we can see the health of the dog, etc. Type. The type is essential. The standard should be the description of the type. Is it unique to a breed? It is unique to some breeds and different to other ones. Without type, we lose the identity of the breeds. A standard can be interpreted in different ways and suggest, according to the interpretation, different types in the same breed. Most likely, if we ask different judges about the type, we will have different answers. The standards can be vague, but we can be certain that no interpretation will be made about them, and it will be because it would be in the detriment of the dog's health. We have differences of type according to interpretation. With very similar standards, we have very different dogs in the same breed. This is due to the different interpretations in different parts. For example, the reality of a Springer or a German Shepherd for judges and US breeders will be very different compared to the European one. Not just in these two breeds, but in many others, in very many others, and a great deal of others, Boxers, Doberman, and we could continue like this with many more. This is a reality, and we need to take it into consideration, the fact that it exists, and work with it. Many times we have made proposals as to creating new breeds based on the different types, and we have the experience, for example, with the English Cocker that derived in another breed called the American Cocker. But then the English Cocker was also changed to a different English Cocker, American type. And we will continue like this forever and have new breeds all the time. Then we have differences in type per evolution. It is also a different idea compared to other breeds 50 years ago. And now the ideal type is subjective to the time and place. It is an eternal controversy and subject for discussion. We know there is natural evolution, but we should never forget about the health of the dogs. And many times the changes that have taken place in breeds will affect the health of other breeds. Priorities that mark the type: the silhouette, the head, the movement, and the jaw. These four things are what mark the type of breed. The silhouette is acknowledging a breed even if it's through the distance. Like we have it here, a dog painted in black, you will be able to tell which breed it is, and it is easy to differentiate from other breeds. The head, if we look for a very well balanced head with dog, we need to look after the head. They are very important in the special type of each breed. The movement, each breed depending on their structure, proportion, angles, and the purpose for which it was created moves in different ways, and under no circumstance can we expect them to have a generic movement with long stroll, with long steps. Each breed has its own stepping and speed, and it is a very important part of the breed. The mantle, the fur. The fur is very specific. None of them is because a whim or because somebody else wants. They have them because they have a specific task that needs to be respected also, because this is also important. If the dog needs to have hard hair and it has soft hair, then their function can be affected as well as other things. The importance of balance, the right balance and proportion, will give us harmony, which is essential. It doesn't matter if the dog is idle or in movement, if all parts are in harmony, no characteristic will be highlighting. It should be all in harmony and in balance. The proportions are very important. Here we can see three races, three breeds, and I'm sure the three of them come from the same origin. One of the differences marking which is the proportions. We have the parson on the left and a fox terrier on the right. A point that counts besides the ones that we mark, in the sound type, this is a soundness that defines very well what we look for. It is very difficult to find a word that defines it, but it would be physical and mental health. The class is another point that counts, as well as quality. The class, the dog is born with it. This isn't something we can teach it. It's not like we can train them on class. This is something dogs have and highlighted, and the charisma that also sets them apart from the dogs of their own breed. The concept of beauty varies greatly from one place to another, from one time to another, and it is very subjective. It could be very beautiful for some, but for some others, not quite. As an example, we have here a woman from the Mirsu tribe from Ethiopia. Because of their customs and beliefs, she would be very beautiful, but for us, she is just different. It wouldn't be easy to understand. In ancient China, also wrapping feet around marked a symbol of beauty for women, but for other cultures, that is something frowned upon. So we need to be aware that it is different from one place and time to the other. But we need to bear in mind that in dogs and our activity, it is so important to bear in mind that we have to look for balance, to strive for balance. We need to teach, and we need to learn and teach. It should be interpreted. The dog's health should be interpreted as having a happy dog capable of performing the task the breed was created for without exception and without pain. And balance means one part is adjusted and adapted to the rest, improving all the set. The exaggerations could be well valued in cartoons, for example, but never in Canaan culture. Exaggerations, no matter how little they are, very soon these exaggerations will be exaggerated themselves, and it will be an endless reaction. Any exaggeration breaks harmony, but the worst is that it is generally translated in discomfort, upset, and pain in dogs. An exaggeration is a truth that lost the rails, and I put it here because I think it's actually true. Little by little, we lose sight of reality and the objectiveness of something. A poor intentional interpretation of the criteria set forth in the standard are a form of evil that could be convenient for the bad breeders but never for the benefit of the dog. Dogs suffer silently all this evil, and it is our responsibility to prevent this from happening. We shouldn't need the national governments or ecological groups to tell us how we should act for our dogs not to suffer. Breeders and experienced judges know very well the path without needing anyone telling them about it. It is just having the will to do it. There is no need to change the breeds. There are enough breeds to satisfy all the needs and all the tastes. We don't need to change something just to say, I did it. It is a lot more important to preserve the beauty of the breeds we already have and let the world understand the need for these breeds to be preserved. Well, thank you so much. I don't know if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Jorge.
Muchas gracias, Jorge. Tenemos otro micrófono en operación por allá, pero creo que no hay volumen en el otro micrófono. Sí. Muy bien, ¿alguna pregunta?
Buenos días.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you very much for your presentation. It is truly a subject that is passionating for me. We have had the chance to talk about this a little bit, and the question here that I am asking you is, when let me see how to put it. Where do we draw the line? When do we know this is too much? How do they know they are qualifying a hypertype as good? Because I think this has happened in several breeds. They're even rewarding hypertypes, and they're taking them as the base to continue to use them as the type. So, yeah, that's my question. One of the stops judges should look at is precisely the central subject of this Congress. When these changes are detrimental to the health and welfare of dogs. Yesterday at the coffee break we discussed it. We know this is one of the breeds that suffers greatly from this. I had an example of the evolution over time. When just like we discussed yesterday, the standard is almost the same, but it is an evolution that we've been accustomed to. It shows differences in type per zone and in a timeline. There are things that are normal, and we know breeds evolve right now or 10 years ago, but evidently most breed dogs that we could bring from the past, from 50 years ago, would perform very, very poorly in a ring, but we don't have to go to the extreme. For example, the breed that is exaggerating a virtue that is considered, for example, arching the head, it is exaggerated according to the standard, and it is affecting the health. The teeth is buried in the mouth. But what's sad is that if you point it out in the ring and you don't reward it, then the breeders say that this is something normal. and that you are not into the breed and you're not a breeder yourself, so you don't understand, but that the mouth doesn't matter or is not as important as another part, but it is, if not more, and the standard marks it perfectly. So it is very sad to have this criterion, and the absolute stop would be for breeders to be aware and responsible for this type of changes.
Hi. In 2016, the Kennel Club extensively revised the standard for the Pekingese without consultation with breeders, ostensibly in reaction, knee-jerk reaction to the expose of the BBC, pedigree dogs exposed. And I find it very, very vague. It says a lot of relatively this and relatively that. How does a judge know what is relative? Okay, that's the first thing. Secondly, there is a conflict in this standard. It says here the forequarters are relatively short, thick, heavily boned forelegs, and the bones of the forelegs may be slightly bowed between pasterns, meaning it can be straight. And yet, in the gait or movement, it says typically slow, dignified rolling gait in front. Now, this is incompatible with a straight front. So, how will FCI regard that?
I will answer you in Spanish, so if you can put your...
Aparato de traducción.
Como mencioné anteriormente,
Yeah, as I said before, the FCI tries to respect the standards of the origin country. This is the standard we get from the UK. And we take it as FCI. With the policies that we have, we try to respect it as best we can. I understand some changes have taken place due to certain needs to try to orient the breed towards healthier dogs, but we cannot make huge changes. I also understand that we shouldn't have waited for the documentary of the BBC to come out to start doing a number of things we did afterwards. It should have been a responsibility from all of us to do it before and not do it under pressure. To improve something in order not to be exposed, it should have been the responsibility to preserve the health our dogs deserve. Congratulations on your presentation. I would like to know about tail and ear surgery. Today we have standards in which we have the possibility to have this, but there are countries in which this is not possible. As judges or breeders, what can we do about this? And I don't know if there's something determined of the suggestion of FCI about the change in little or no time. This is a very hot topic, especially in a country like Mexico, being here in Latin America, with people from Asia, and it affects everyone. The problem is that, as I said before, and like I said in my previous answer, we try as best as we can to respect the origin country. This isn't a decision from FCI, this is a decision made by Germany and Italy. This decision will affect the German breeds, the Rottweiler, Doberman, Schnauzer, Shepherd, and two Italian breeds, Cane Corso and Napolitan Mastiff. And the rest, they don't have a problem unless they have specific regulations from their country in which it is prohibited, but that is something we cannot control. We cannot force the origin country. Germany does it also not because it is a whim. If it was up to them, they wouldn't have determined that. We know it will affect this type of breeds, especially in all of our zones. but it will be a normal evolution. Nothing will happen. Those who really love this type of breeds, I don't think will live because of a tail or an ear. A dog goes way beyond that. And even if that pisses them off, FCI has realized that more than 5 years ago they said there was an end date. We are going against the standards because at that time we should have changed it. But taking into consideration that it was a very delicate and hot subject, we took this measure. Unfortunately, breeders haven't taken into consideration, and before the date is up, they will be concerned about what to do with these puppies. This is a decision made, and it is not a whim. It is a matter of will. But we need to be in reality. If I was a breeder of this breed, I would be concerned about having good ears and good tails instead of fighting over something that it makes no sense.
Thank you, Jorge, for the great presentation. I would like
Gracias,
to add
Jorge, por la gran presentación. Quisiera agregar un par de comentarios. La belleza en sí misma es una definición
culture is a matter of consensus.
y es un método de consenso. Estos estándares son los que crean ese consenso. ¿Por qué y quién? ¿Por qué podemos considerar bonito a un perro? Y hay dos pilares para esto. Uno es la funcionalidad, por eso me gusta llamarlo belleza funcional. Se me hace que un perro es bonito debido a su conformación, condición, y parece que pueden hacer el trabajo para el que fueron creados. Pero el segundo, en este tenemos que regresar a tu pregunta. El segundo es la herencia nacional del país que creó la raza. Tenemos que respetar eso. Y yo quisiera agregar que es un trabajo muy difícil para la Comisión de Estándares. Hay muchos problemas políticos y diplomáticos, así como profesionales en los 4 idiomas. La Comisión Estándar de FCI y sus ancestros como Raymond Triquet, acabamos de mencionarlo ayer, debido al servicio de excelencia de largo plazo, fue que se decidió más o menos dárselo a él, y luego a René Provelus y Jorge y su grupo, que también son embajadores fabulosos, así que muchas gracias por haber hecho esto tan bien.
I want to thank the FCI board members for giving Mexico the opportunity of having this important World Congress for Welfare and Health for the dogs worldwide. We are really pleased, and thank you so much for giving us this great opportunity. And also I want to thank all the speakers from all over the world who participate in this great event. Thank you.